Hello friends, welcome back to another Value Vintage Cards video. So I jumped into a chat last night, video recording a chill and chat, if you will, with Sammy Thunder and several other collectors. And I was just in the comments and reading everything and listening to Sammy and him reading the other comments that were being made, and wanted to chime in and just share some thoughts on one of the big topics that came up, and it was focused around pre-war cards, and in specific reference to grading, how tough it was to get those cards, rarity, scarcity, things like that, and then looking at like T206s and unique backs, things of that nature. So I'm going to approach that in two ways. One is the back discussion and my perspective on that and how I view it. And then I'm going to take a look at some grading, because there was a lot of focus on that. I feel like that's such an emphasis in the hobby, is the grade you got on the card. And so I'm going to share a few from that set to keep that a little bit consistent. But one of the comments was the back that is on the card should be considered, and I agree, the rare backs are absolutely at a premium. But just to share, I'm going to turn this around for most of these, but I'm going to share two right now. One is this. So T206 red background tie cop. I didn't fully research the way SGC breaks these down. They do it by back. So I'd have to click through every single one and add it up, and I'm not doing that. I'm not that interested in that. But what I did find interesting, I looked at PSA. PSA has it all kind of concise and summarized. That card has been graded 2,600 times by PSA. For perspective, obviously a majority are the two or three main backs that you see out there. Some of the scarce backs are very rare. Tie cob back is, one of one or something, I think. So those are kind of off the table in terms of a whole different topic and discussion. But 2,600 of them graded by PSA. Maybe SGC seen just as many. Do we worry about a common back being too easy to find? I don't know. Do we worry about that card being too easy to find? Some of us do. There's one back. That's the only back you'll find. This card has been graded by PSA 17,000 times. So what is that? A 7 multiple? I've never heard anybody saying, that's junk vintage era. If there's 7 times the amount of Nolan Ryan's graded compared to what I believe is the most graded T206 card, that includes all backs for the T206 card. That means the overrun backs, even if they're a majority of the 2,600, that's still a pretty tough card. So for me mentally, I don't worry about the back. In fact, with Hall of Famers and stars, I want the low dollar backs. I think the other backs are cool, but I don't deep dive on a player. I do, but it's a lot of players. So for me, I can't really camp down and try and get like 15 different backs for one player. Maybe I should Mordecai Brown. I don't know. Future projects, thinking out loud. But in reality, they get, you take a Mordecai Brown, for example, and you take that from being a, $200, $300, $400, $500, if you want one nicer kind of card, and you turn it into a thousands of dollar card. And for me mentally, the way I collect, I need to get a Walter Johnson. I don't want to spend it on a $200 guy with a premium back. So will I one day? I don't know. That'd be a fun project when, 2030 rolls around and Aaron's looking for something different. But for today, that's not my focus. I'll take the common backs on the Hall of Fame players. They're scarce enough. They're tough enough. As it is. My version of scarcity is it has to be in a low enough grade that I can afford it, because I'm trying to amass a wide collection, not a narrow, deep super premium collections. So that's my philosophy. That's how I collect. So let me flip it around. I want to talk a little bit about grades, though. I think that's the other major topic of the discussion from last night. All right, friends, I thought for a quality control factor, I would stick with just the T206 series, and I would also stick with just graded versions. So I'm showing 4 of the SGCs. They're all graded as a 2, obviously at different times. You can tell by the flips they're a little bit sporadic on time, but I think it's a interesting breakdown on what you can do to make it a 2. So figure out what it is that appeals to you. That one's got one of the better centerings. Corners are actually pretty respectable, but it's got a crease. Halfway through the card you can see a little bit just right next to his jersey, slightly creased. The Tinker, again, decent enough on the centering side, decent enough on corners, good image, that's probably the most important thing to me. Got an X on the back. I don't know how it's still got a 2 with an X on the back, but maybe it's a much better card. A couple of the corners are softer than others, but nothing looks like it's crazy out of line with what you'd expect or hope for. The Rube has multiple creases, and so that one's really interesting. All right, so with Rube, crazy reach the way we got this thing set up. You take a look at the Rube card. Definitely got some creasing, semi-heavily through his head. Corners are nice and rounded, and even the image has a little bit of some kind of mark on it there. So it's a little bit marked up. Back's fine for back collectors of the world, but as a whole, it's fine for me. Clearly, I don't mind it. I bought it, right? But for some people, those are deal breaker characteristics. Tris Speaker might be the most offensive of the group. Sneak around here on the side. With Speaker, it's actually top to bottom centering not so great. Got a crease on the top, goes through like into his hat. So different angles on that. Corners are okay. I mean, for me, the centering is, again, not a big deal. Sweet cat back. Back seems fine. Nothing really wrong with that. So that works for me. But for some, those would be distracting and reduce their ability to enjoy the card. It does not do that for me. I'm very happy to have a 2 like that. A lot of times I look at these 2s as just being, a high grade 1. There's just a few things that aren't wrong with it that would have made it a 1. So let me take a look at some other ones here. See what you all think. On the next one, Jake Beckley, another Hall of Famer. So that is very minor crease, it looks like. Centering close to the Tris Speaker. Colors vibrant and good, but it's also a 2.5. So they judge that to be a superior condition card. Again, time of flip and whatever else, we're discounting it for that because we're saying they had a different standard at some point. So how much do we really trust the grading anyway? That's a sovereign back. I mean, it's still not scarce back, but kind of an interesting additional one to consider at 2.5. Next one I will show you, I think, has an interesting argument for the condition as well. It has the most surface scuffing. So the surface is the least clean, maybe. So registration-wise, you ding it. Corners are decent. I don't think I really see a crease on this card per se. Back's a little dirty, but not crazy. Yeah, tough. Tough. Got a 2.5. Love the card. I'm doing this not to bash any of my cards. I do, like, if I cared, I wouldn't have them, right? So the condition is not, I'm not doing this for a criticism of my own collection. I'm doing this to share how much it shouldn't matter. Again, you're buying the card, not the grade. This last one, interesting. That's the back of this one. I can't tell at the top there. Is that pen mark? It's a little bit stained. I can't tell at the very top next to the new. That's been crossed off. I think it has. I think it's actually a pen mark. The card itself is fantastic. I mean, that is my goal for what a card should look like. Corners are slightly soft. Centering's not quite perfect, but my gosh, for a 2.5, taking that every day of the week. And whatever day I would have bought this on, I did take it. So that Zach Wheat to me is fantastic. And a little bit of whatever on the back that would have brought it down from a better grade is good with me. Next up, I want to show one that is the same grade but by a different company. And it's one of the few non-Hall of Famers. There's a few players that I've acquired that either I like the pose, sometimes you just buy it because it's artwork, and the image, and other times the player story is beyond Hall of Fame, definition and how I collect. So it's a 2.5. You see the stories and what it, being a deaf player and how the game changed because of the few deaf players and how crazy it is that they called all of them dummy, just as every Native American was chief and every lefty is lefty. And yeah, it's interesting how things have changed, but dummy was not necessarily meant as a term of insult and being derogatory, but that for a 2.5. Centering's a little off, corners a little off, but no creasing. And registration-wise, colors, image, fantastic. So when I saw this one, back, same thing, little off, but perfect backs are not why I do it. Great image. So that's a 2.5 according to PSA. Next one is one of the cleaner T206s I've got. Big fan of Addy Joss. His story. The story of a lot of these guys is just what makes it fun to collect them. That one's a 3. So again, corners. One of them's fantastic. One of them's really good. Another one's pretty strong. The other one's a little bit weak, and centering could be a little better. But T206s, as long as you get the name in there, and it's not completely crazy. I don't know how that happens too. The back is like fairly off on the centering, and the front's not. What the heck are you guys doing back then? I mean, the tobacco companies weren't big on quality control for the cards they were inserting to try and make their sales of tobacco entertaining. Crazy. Shocking. And that's why it doesn't bother me. So that's what a 3 looks like. And those are the other thing I will add, because I know, we know, the grading standards have changed. So that is a 7 serial number. The Taylor is an 8 serial number. So those are both pretty recent. I think 9s is when we really see it being strict. My philosophy is PSA makes their grading standards tougher and tougher and tougher because they want to be known as the premium grading company. So if they continually grade tougher, we're actually getting better and better cards in the exact same grade, which keeps the price high. So that's my philosophy. I think it's, whether it's intentional manipulation or just simply a changing of the times and just happens to coincide that way, but I believe that's why we see tougher grading standards. I think they want people to know, like when they graded a 4, let's say premium 4, and therefore we pay up for it, and therefore we tend to view them as a premium grading company. That's my conspiracy theory or philosophy. This last one, I think, is my nicest, maybe my nicest looking T206. Again, I'm not trying to get 6s and 7s and stuff, but back is clean, back is centered. I don't see any marks on the back even. So that's wonderful. I think that is pretty fantastic. The corners look great. The centering's solid. It's an older flip, and it got a 2. What? I will always say I think that's one of the best looking ones. If I could buy every card as a 2 and it looked like that, I'd be thrilled. That's ridiculous. How is that a 2? I don't see any creases even. I don't see anything. Colors are great, vibrant, centering's good. I feel like that should be like a 5. Legit, looks great. I have no idea. I just work here. So, yeah, that's my breakdown. I wanted to just throw out some perspective on how I see things. It's a topic that I think could probably be in another 20 videos, and then share insights and thoughts and see how other people think. When you see it's a 2, you know, the range of what a 2 means. You know, I think actually the 4 that are showing, you got a little pen mark, you got a crease with good centering and good colors, you got some creasing with some soft corners, the back's clean, you got some centering issues and some corners, but not a whole lot of creasing, a light crease to it. But you know, the 2.5s, that Zach Wheat, glorious. The Vic Willis, fantastic. Taylor card is sharp. Joss for a 3. I don't know that I could say that's a nicer 3 than the Willis is a 2. So I think when we look at these cards, we need to not rely on the number, but really analyze not only is the number right. Again, if you have cards like that Willis that are a 2, I will buy those from you every day of the week, because I feel like you should be looking at that as a 4 or 5. But also just, you know, what made it that grade. So I think it's interesting to see people saying, I want to go from a 5 to a 6, and I look at the 5, I'm like, what made it a 5 that is upsetting to you? Are we swapping numbers? Because I can't tell that there is any issue with that card that needs resolved to tick up one number. Should a 2 to a 9 be a significant difference? Yes. A 5 to a 6, I generally can't find it. A 2 to a 2, we can find major differences. And I'm assuming really all of these in front of you are fair twos. So which one of these is the one that offends you? Is it the centering? Is it the creasing? Is it the colors? Is it, whatever? But I don't want to make this too incredibly long. I've been trying not to do 20-minute videos lately, but I just thought this topic and, a good way to illustrate it was to use the set that was discussed and the wide range of grades and grading that we see on this set. So definitely please, this should be one I want to see comments, chime in, tell me your thoughts. Are you offended that anything's lower than a 5 for 1909 cards? Or, is centering really that big of a deal? Or is it corners? Is it wear? Is it surface? Are all 4 of these cards in front of you gross, or are these right up your alley? So just curious. I think the topic could be discussed weekly for the next 10 years, and we wouldn't cover it to the full depth. So have at it. I appreciate your hanging in there, and please add all the comments you think are appropriate. I'll see you guys on the next one.